On to the next video. Now, let's talk about morality and conflicts of force. Think wars, brawls, battles, skirmishes. Could be any number of those, it really doesn't matter. But the end question is, how do we have morality in such situations? See, throughout human history, many conflicts have come to be, and many of those have been resolved with force. Some conflicts were over land disputes, others ideology, and even more were just the desires and interests of those at the top of an organization which rules them, and those under them. See, that's just kind of how people are. You may not like it, but people are people, and plenty of them are pains. Pains such that they would rather have a conflict of force than resolve things with a proper solution. And, unfortunately, you can't really handle a proper solution and use it when the other option is getting shot by a gun for not doing so. So, you have to be ready for force and be ready to act upon it. But, as always, people wish to claim moral stances with such conflicts. Through just war theory, ideological claims, and or humanitarian intervention, countless excuses and moral claims have been used to justify conflict or its avoidance. Why shouldn't we do this? Well, it's not proper with just war theory. How do we justify this? Well, it's humanitarian intervention. We're saving these people. Okay. But once a conflict is started, is morality truly that which shines through in the acts of everyday soldiers and their commanders? No. In truth, that isn't the case. As survivability and operational effectiveness will regularly take priority over civilian lives or morality, and it is understandable why. Think about it. You can't save anyone when you're dead. Sure, you may want to save people. You may desire it. But is that really what's going to work in the long run? No. And commanders know this. Besides, they got their own promotions to think about. Even those who truly care about people still have other matters to attend to. And then there's simple collateral damage. See, sometimes you don't even intend to hit the civilians, but you do. Let's face it, confusion happens all the time on the battlefield. Bad intelligence, someone got obscured, or maybe it was purposely redirected towards a civilian target. Could be a whole number of things. But whatever the case, some attack instead hits civilians, without intention. It's collateral damage, and it's tragic, but it still happens regularly. There is a phrase, war never survives contact with the enemy. Or rather, the proper phrase, which I failed to write, is that plans never survive contact with the enemy. Why I messed up, I don't know. I am me. Sometimes people make mistakes, I make plenty. But this phrase, plans never survive contact with the enemy, is very true. But neither does morality in the traditional sense, or even the unconventional senses we now see. Kantian ethics, the feminist ideology based in power struggles among men and women, care-based morality, and the ethics behind them. None of them survive the reality of a situation in which victory is only achieved through the burial of another. If murder is wrong, with a Kantian belief, a complete deontological declaration that murder is wrong, but the only way to end a war is to put a bullet between someone's fingers, or, more accurately, between their brain, well, tell me, would that murder be acceptable? If killing someone becomes the way to win, then what do you do? Because, technically speaking, if it's the illegal killing of another, which, I mean, if you're at war with them, I guarantee you it's freaking illegal to do so for them, well then, that's murder. And if it's murder, then according to Kant, it is wrong. Meanwhile, the feminists and their views of power struggles and hierarchies face a different challenge. Simply put, in a situation where victory is only achieved through fighting, there's an inherent power structure there, and you do not win without being on top of it. So how do you call it moral to fight? You can't, because you must necessarily be at the top of that power structure to win. You aren't fighting against the power structure, you are the power structure, and you enforce it through violence. And what about care? Those who are close to you. Yes, you're going to defend them naturally, but simultaneously, you're going to watch others die. You're going to sacrifice those who care about each other, who desire to protect others, defy every duty, defy every piece of care in your body to ensure victory. The burial of another is necessarily the ending of every bond they have, and the suffering that comes forth from it. You cannot have a morals code that lasts the blasts of war in such a case. I don't do this and say this to claim morality is of no worth, or that pacifism is what we should choose. I say it to acknowledge reality, simple as. Morality does not survive conflicts of force. It's not a pleasant thought, but it is a true one, and an unfortunate one. We may long or desire for conflicts to be resolved peacefully, but will that happen? Not so long as people think they can get a better deal by going to the last resort. Violence is the universal language. It's something everyone understands, but it's not a pleasant thing. It's not a nice thing to experience. Getting hit with a stick is not enjoyable. For most, masochists exist, so there's always exceptions. But, generally speaking, the vast majority of people do not enjoy war or conflicts of force. It's just a thing that people do because it gets results. And that's why they do it. And you can't just declare all wars to be over. If we just take all the weapons, people will fight with their bare hands if they believe it gets better results. So long as humans are humans, so long as there is a desire to achieve a goal, and that goal can be achieved through the last resort, well then, people will do that. Force is the universal language. It's the final arbiter that decides how things go. And as such, plenty of people will resort to it. But with that comes the necessary caveats. Morality does not survive it. It cannot survive it. Because war is the most brutal way to solve something. That's why it is the final arbiter. Not the first, but the final one. Because whoever survives is the one who decides. Or whoever is able to limp long enough to get the treaty to pass, to enforce their will upon another. Morality does not play a role there. It cannot play a role. You can say all you want about law-based ethics, or a rules-based world order where everyone follows certain rules regarding war and governance. But do people? Do they truly do so? No. They won't care about your sovereignty. They won't care about your moral appeals. People will do what people do because they wish to achieve their ends. Some simply because they feel like it. Others because they have grand plans and strategies to achieve something. But morals do not stop them from hurting others. Your claims of rules and laws do not stop them from hurting others. Force does. And once it comes down to that, it isn't a matter of morals. It's a matter of who's stronger, who's smarter, who's able to use that force best. And with it, you naturally have certain conclusions. In the end, what matters is your ability to assert force, but also your ability to restrain it. Force is not something that should be used in everyday incidents. It's not just something that one should assert without question. But it is something that, once it's necessary to assert, must be asserted with full force, full throttle, without restraint, other than to make sure the only ones hurt are those actively threatening the person in question. Morals don't play a role in that. It's simply about avoiding collateral damage and wasting effort. Because that way, the conflicts of force are minimized. Since once they start, they do not stop until the force is applied at the point where someone's forced to concede. In such cases, we must use force in such a way. Rarely are things pleasant. That much is true. And I do hope, eventually, we can minimize conflicts of force. But I severely doubt we can end them all. And with such a reality, we can only choose to accept when morality can be applied. And a conflict of force isn't one. You may say, well, a utilitarian belief works, and sure, it kind of does. But even that has its weaknesses. Since how does one calculate how many lives will be saved or spared, versus those who will die or perish? Truly, that becomes a very big problem, one we are unlikely to know. It is claimed 1 million people died in Iraq. Civilians, military, all of them combined. Is that number exaggerated? Very likely so, considering it was halfway through the war, and those done after the fact found far less. But how do we know how many people Hussein would have killed had he remained in power? How many would have been killed by ISIS had the US and others not tried to push them back? We can never be certain of such things. And even utilitarianism and consequentialist thought, those beliefs, those morals designed for such things, for these situations where people will die no matter what, even they cannot give guarantees of what is right or what is wrong. So, we have to accept the necessary evils inherent in this. I do hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment on what you believe, or if you disagree. I welcome it.